channel where we are reading the Bible in a year. We are reading the entire Bible in a year, and we are now on day 67, where today we will be reading, oh gosh, let me get to my stuff. What into it? Okay. All right. Today we will be reading from Matthew 12, 1 through 21, Leviticus 14, and Proverbs 26. All right? So I can't get myself together today. So starting at Matthew 12, 1 through 21. Oh my gosh. My allergies have been really acting up with all this pollen. Living here in the South, you got all this pollen. Well, I guess everywhere in the U.S. probably is facing pollen challenges, itchy eyes, and everything. So, bear with me. Bear with me and the runny nose, and hopefully I don't sneeze. But anyway, so starting at chapter 12, plucking grain on the Sabbath. At that time, Jesus went through the grain fields. They began to pluck heads of grain and to eat. When the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, "Look at your disciples. Look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath." He said to them, "Have you not read what David did when he and his companions were hungry? He entered the house of God and ate the bread of the presence, which it was not lawful for him or his companions to eat, but only for the priests. Or have you not read in the law that on the Sabbath the priests in the temple break the Sabbath and yet are guiltless? I tell you something, greater than the temple is here. But if you had known what this means, I desire mercy, not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless, for the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath." The man with a withered hand. He left the place and entered their synagogue. A man was there with a withered hand, and they asked him, "Is it lawful to cure on the Sabbath?" So they might accuse him. He said to them, "Suppose one of you has only one sheep, and it falls into a pit on the Sabbath. Will you not lay hold of it and lift it out? How much more valuable is a human being than a sheep? So is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath?" Then he said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and it was restored as sound as the other. But the Pharisees went out and conspired against him, how to destroy him. God's chosen servant. When Jesus became aware of this, he departed. Many crowds followed him, and he cured all of them. And he ordered them not to make him known. This was to fulfill what had been spoken through the prophet Isaiah. "Here is my servant whom I have chosen, my beloved, which my soul is well pleased. I will put my spirit upon him, and he will proclaim justice to the Gentiles. He will not wrangle or cry aloud, nor will anyone hear his voice in the streets. He will not break a bruised reed or quench a smoldering wick until he brings justice to victory. And in his name, the Gentiles will hope." All right. So, Matthew 12, 1 through 21, Jesus and the Sabbath. So we see where, I guess, the disciples were hungry, and they began to pluck heads of the grain to eat. They were so hungry, I guess traveling or whatever. And the Pharisees saw them and was like, "No, wait a minute. You don't see what..." They didn't like them anyway. So when you don't like someone, you try to find everything wrong anyway. Like, wait a minute, you call yourself this, but you letting your disciples, your followers, pluck grain out of the fields to eat it. That's working on the Sabbath. Not supposed to do anything on the Sabbath. So we're living by the law. So he said David did what did David do when he and his companions were hungry? They ate. He entered the house of God and ate the bread of the presence, which it was not lawful for him and his companions to eat, but only for the priest. But he was hungry, so he's supposed to just go hungry? No. So basically he's teaching there's a such thing as mercy. Like all throughout this is about mercy. So yeah, he reminds about David eating the sacred bread because he was in need. Him and his companions were hungry. So the priest in the temple, this is when he heals the man on the Sabbath, and he uses a great I guess metaphor and example is if the sheep falls in the well, are you not going to retrieve it? Are you not going to help? Are you just going to let the sheep just stay there? So this man needed help. He had an ailment. I'm going to heal him. Why not do that? Like, I mean, I can't just look at this person sitting here on the Sabbath, oh, just because it's a Sabbath or whatever, I'm not supposed to just do this or whatever. Like living by the law instead of being merciful. Okay? And basically those laws of the Sabbath were just made so man can take a rest and not, strenuous activity or whatever. That doesn't mean that you don't go and help people. No. Okay, so yeah. So basically Jesus here is just really just pointing out or stressing compassion over compassion and mercy over rituals and rules. Okay. Yep. And then Jesus quickly they're reminded of the scripture of Isaiah that let me see, where is it? It's somewhere in here. It's somewhere. Yeah. So he had, followed him and cured all of them. He ordered them not to make him known. This was to fulfill what had been spoken through the prophet Isaiah. And then Matthew reminds us what that scripture was. Here is my servant whom I have chosen, my beloved, with whom my soul is well pleased. I will put my spirit upon him, and he will proclaim justice to the Gentiles. He will not wrangle a cry aloud, nor will anyone hear his voice in the streets. All right? So just referencing that scripture to this man, to Jesus. All right? That he is to come. So he is, God come down in the form of man to show them the way. Okay? So Leviticus 14. Mark my place first. Leviticus 14. Purification of lepers and leprous houses. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, this shall be the ritual for the leprous person at the time of his cleansing. He shall be brought to the priest. The priest shall go out of the camp, and the priest shall make an examination. If the disease is healed in the leprous person, the priest shall command that 2 living clean birds and cedar wood and crimson yarn and hyssop he brought for the one who is to be cleansed. The priest shall command that one of the birds be slaughtered over fresh water in an earthen vessel. He shall take the living bird with the cedar wood and the crimson yarn and the hyssop and dip them and the living bird in the blood of the bird that was slaughtered over the fresh water. He shall sprinkle it 7 times upon the one who is to be cleansed of the leprous disease. Then he shall pronounce him clean, and he shall let the living bird go into the open field. The one who is to be cleansed shall wash his clothes and shave off his hair and bathe himself in water, and he shall be clean. After that he shall come into the camp, but shall live outside his tent 7 days. On the 7th day He shall shave all his hair off his head, beard, eyebrows. He shall shave all his hair. Then he shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and he shall be clean. On the 8th day he shall take 2 male lambs without blemish, and 1 ewe lamb in its first year without blemish, and a grain offering of 3/10 of the ephah of choice flour mixed with oil, and 1 log of oil. The priest who cleanses shall set the person to be cleansed along with these things before the Lord at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The priest shall take 1 of the lambs and offer it as a guilt offering, along with the log of oil, and raise them as an elevation offering before the Lord. He shall slaughter the lamb in the place where the sin offering and the burnt offering are slaughtered in the holy place. For the guilt offering, like the sin offerings, belongs to the priest and is most holy. The priest shall take some of the blood of the guilt offering and put it on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, and the thumb on the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot. The priest shall take some of the log of oil and pour it into the palm of his own left hand, and dip his right finger in the oil that is in his left hand, and sprinkle some oil with his finger 7 times before the Lord. Some of the oil that remains in his hand the priest shall put on the lobe of the right ear, and one to be cleansed, and the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot, and on the top of the blood of the guilt offering. Put the rest of the oil that is in the priest's hand shall be put on the head of the one to be cleansed. Then the priest shall make atonement on his behalf before the Lord. The priest shall offer the sin offering to make atonement for the one to be cleansed from his uncleanliness. Afterward he shall slaughter the burnt offering, and the priest shall offer the burnt offering and the grain offering on the altar. Thus the priest shall make atonement on his behalf, and he shall be clean. But if he is poor and cannot afford so much, he shall take 1 male lamb for a guilt offering to be elevated and to make atonement on his behalf, and 1/10 of the ephah of choice flour mixed with oil for a grain offering, and a log of oil. Also 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons, such as he can afford, 1 for a sin offering, and other for a burnt offering. On the 8th day he shall bring them for his cleansing to the priest, to the entrance of the tent of meeting before the Lord. And the priest shall take the lamb of the guilt offering and a log of oil, and the priest shall raise them as a elevation offering before the Lord. The priest shall slaughter the lamb of the guilt offering, and shall take some of the blood of the guilt offering and put it on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, and on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot. The priest shall pour some of the oil into the palm of his own left hand, and shall sprinkle it with his right finger, some of the oil that is on his left hand 7 times before the Lord. The priest shall put some of the oil that is in his hand on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, and on the thumb of the right hand, and the big toe of the right foot, where the blood of guilt offering was placed. The rest of the oil that is in the priest's hand shall be put on the head of the one to be cleansed, and to make atonement on his behalf before the Lord. And he shall offer the turtle doves or pigeons, such as he can afford, 1 for sin offering and the other for burnt offering, along with a grain offering. And the priest shall make atonement before the Lord on behalf of the one being cleansed. This is the ritual for the one who has a leprous disease, who cannot afford the offerings for his cleansing. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, when you come into the land of Canaan, which I give you for a possession, I will put a leprous disease in a house in the land of your possession. The owner of the house shall come and tell the priest, saying, there seems to me to be some sort of disease in my house. The priest shall command that they empty the house before the priest goes to examine the disease, or all that is in the house will become unclean, and afterward the priest shall go in to inspect the house. He shall examine the disease. If the disease is in the walls of the house with greenish or reddish spots, it appears to be deeper than the surface. The priest shall go outside of the door of the house and shut up the house 7 days. The priest shall come again on the 7th day and make an inspection. If the disease has spread in the walls of the house, the priest shall command that the stones in which the disease appears be taken out and thrown into an unclean place outside the city. He should have the inside of the house scraped thoroughly, and the plaster that is scraped off shall be dumped into an unclean place outside the city. They shall take the other stones and put them in a place of those stones, and take other plaster and plaster in the house. If the disease breaks out again in the house after he is taken out the stones and scraped the house and plastered it, the priest shall go and make inspection of the disease has spread. If the disease has spread in the house, it is spreading leprous disease in the house, it is unclean. It is a spreading leprous disease in the house, it is unclean. He shall have the house torn down, the stones and timber off the plaster of the house, and taken outside the city to an unclean place. All who enter the house while it is shut up shall be unclean until the evening. And all who sleep in the house shall wash their clothes, and all who eat in the house shall wash their clothes. If the priest comes and makes an inspection, and the disease has not spread in the house after the house was plastered, the priest shall pronounce the house clean, the disease is healed. For the cleansing of the house shall take 2 birds with cedar wood and crimson yarn and hyssop, and shall slaughter one of the birds over the fresh water in an earthen vessel, and shall take the cedar wood and the hyssop and the crimson yarn along with the living bird, and dip them in the blood of the slaughtered bird and the fresh water, and sprinkle the house 7 times. Thus he shall cleanse the house with the blood of the bird, and with the fresh water, and with the living bird, and with the cedar wood and hyssop and crimson yarn. And he shall let the living bird go out of the city into the open field. So he shall make atonement for the house, it shall be clean. This is the ritual for leprous disease, for an itch, for leprous diseases in clothing in the houses, and for swelling or eruption or a spot, to determine when it is unclean and when it is clean. This is the ritual for leprous diseases. All right. So, more directions. Leviticus is the book of directions. So, cleansing from leprous skin diseases. So, God has given them, a word on how to handle leprous diseases, what it is, what it should look like, and how to deal with it from there. So this chapter is giving you details on the ceremonies and cleansing processes for those healed from the skin diseases. The process, calls for 2 birds, washing. One is a sacrifice and the other is set free after it is dipped in the blood of the sacrifice. So symbolizing, restoration. That's what that symbolizes. Same as Jesus died on the cross. But anyway, washing is saving, a sign of new beginnings, like just starting over new. Shave your head, shave all the hair off your body, wash up, and you're brand new. Showing, and then, and offering to the temple, this shows that you're grateful and you're reestablishing fellowship with God. Like you're happy, I've been cured from this disease, because leprosy was a big to-do back then. So, this is actually like a foreshadowing of Jesus, his healing and cleansing work. So just being grateful and grateful to God for healing. Because when you were a leper, you were cast out from the community, because they didn't want it to spread. And it's a good representation of sin. You don't want to be cast out. So once you are cleansed, or once you were saved and cleansed in the blood, you are no longer separate from God. All right? You're restored. So we are grateful. All right? All right. So moving on to Proverbs. Proverbs 26. Like snow in summer or rain in harvest, so honor is not fitting for a fool. Like a sparrow in its fleeting, like a sparrow in its flighting, like a swallow in its flying. An undeserved curse goes nowhere. A whip for the horse, a bridle for the donkey, and a rod for the back of fools. Do not answer fools according to their folly, or you will be a fool yourself. Answer fools according to their folly, or they will be wise in their own eyes. It is like cutting off one's foot and drinking down violence. To send a message by a fool, the legs of the disabled person hang limp. So does a proverb in the mouth of a fool. It is like binding a stone in a sling and give honor to a fool, like a thorn bush brandished by the hand of a drunkard. Is a proverb in the mouth of a fool, like an archer who wounds everybody. Is one who hires a passing fool or drunkard, like a dog that returns to its vomit. Is a fool who reverts to its folly. Do you see persons wise in their own eyes? There is more hope for fools than for them. The lazy person says, there is a lion in the road, there is a lion in the streets. As a door turns on its hinges, so does a lazy person in bed. The lazy person buries a hand in the dish and is too tired to bring it back to the mouth. The lazy person is wiser in self-esteem than 7 who can answer discreetly. The lazy person is entitled. Like someone who takes a passing dog by the ears is one who meddles in the quarrel of another. Like a maniac who shoots deadly firebrands and arrows, so is one who deceives a neighbor and says, I am only joking. For lack of wood and fire goes out, and where there is no whisper, quarreling ceases. As charcoal is too hot, embers and wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome person for kindly strife. The words of a whisper are like delicious morsel. They go down into the inner parts of the body, like the glaze covering an earthen vessel, or smooth lips with an evil heart. An enemy dissembles in speaking while harboring deceit within. When the enemy speaks graciously, do not believe it, for there are several abominations concealed within. Through hatred is covered with gall. An enemy's wickedness will expose the assembly. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it, and a stone will come back on the one who starts it rolling. A lying tongue hates its victims, and a flattering mouth works ruin. All right. So, Proverbs, the folly of fools. Okay. Pointing out verse 11, like a dog that returns to his vomit is a fool who reverts to his folly. All right, so honey, you keep on going back to that. It's like a dog returning to his own vomit. Yep. You know, lazy people make excuses. Like I was pointing out, the lazy person says there's a lion in the road, there's a lion in the streets. It's always something hard that's really not even that hard as to why so you can continue being lazy. Okay, and in verse 20, so is, for lack of wood, fire goes out, and where there's no whisper, quarrel ceases. So, basically, that's a foolish behavior. So just talking behind, I'm thinking whisper just means like whisper is quietly doing things that may cause a fight. Quarreling ceases when there is no, like, just don't take stuff. Don't take it here and there or whatever. And then it dies down. So ignore, chaos or, events that are just not that pleasing. Just ignore them and it'll eventually die down. When people stop talking, when people stop whispering, it dies down. That's what I'm taking that as. Just avoiding foolish behaviors altogether. Always seek wisdom in our words, actions, and associations. A lot of times I'll say, I have to sit back and think so that I don't say something or do something that I would later regret. All right? So we're reminded today of Jesus' mercy, the power of cleansing and renewing and restoring, and the importance of using wisdom. in things that you do. Okay, so we're going to strive today to follow Jesus' example. We're going to embrace his healing and walk in wisdom. If this message has blessed you, if this reading today has blessed you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to more daily Bible readings. God bless, and I'll see you in a minute, because I'm doing 2 a day, for day 68. All right.